The Fallen Project was our team's reaction to a single shooter killing 5 police officers in Dallas last summer, and really a wave of law enforcement officers gunned down across Texas and the country. Following that tragedy and similar attacks across the nation, our investigative team decided to look closely into what led up to those crimes. And today we are examining some of the most compelling cases in recent history.
Show me your hands!
He murdered my friend. He murdered a police officer. Cold-blooded, like a dog, murdered him. Shot him in the face with a shotgun. Point-blank range.
And he shot him again after he was down.
While he was down, yeah.
Most people will never see the devastating video featured in these reports.
Wake up, man, please, come on!
It's raw, and it's very hard to watch, but it's the truth. What is it going to take? How many people have to die before something is done?
What we're supposed to do in government is solve problems, not run away from them.
Clearly, this is something we can't talk about just when there's a death or when there's something in the headlines. Our work revealed some common characteristics among many of the killers. In about a third of the cases, the person pulling the trigger had a history of mental illness. You might think, sure, that's something a lot of people talk about after shootings like these, but here's what we wanted to know. How often is that actually the reason for a murder of a law officer?
Making the right decision is critical because we pay for the mistakes that we make out on the street.
Agencies don't always communicate between each other. Some non-adjudicated information doesn't make it down to the next agency that comes into contact with someone that is having a mental health crisis that law enforcement from a past encounter might have already known about.
How would he know? There's no way he would know.
Well, there's actually a private system that was created by some colleagues of a trooper that was shot and killed in 2000, Randall
But if there's a
Vetter.
private system, but it's not a public system.
It's about $100 per officer, and the counties have to decide to fund it. Many sheriff's offices in Texas right now have it. It's called KXAN.
I think it's a good idea.
We had a guy the other day. He wouldn't stop for us, chased him for about 15 minutes. Mental health guy.
Roll down the window, get your hands up!
Felt bugs on him. He said people were following him, all this stuff.
Step out of the car with your hands up!
We now have entered him into KXAN, where if anybody else runs his tag, runs his license, they're going to know that he needs some mental health help.
And that would possibly protect an officer in the future also if they entered that name in there.
Correct, the officer and him.
We shared what we discovered with state lawmakers who know all too well our state is having a mental health crisis right now. Officers can access criminal backgrounds, but maybe not always the mental health background.
There are probably some privacy issues that you have to keep in mind sharing information like that. It's something worth talking about.
So the idea of a blue alert would be to notify the public after a shooting has happened where a police officer was killed or hurt in the line of duty.
That's right. And so these blue alerts would go out to radio stations who would broadcast them. They'd go out to the text out signs that you see along the highways just to let the public know you need to be looking for this person or this vehicle because they've just done something very heinous and we need to bring them to justice as soon as possible.
People with mental illness are not all potential criminals.
And that's the theme we've been hearing from everyone we're talking about. It's not the fault of the person that has mental illness. That person needs help, and the police officers need to know how to help that person. We need to do more to make things safer, not only for police and for the public, but also for the people living with mental illness every day. A year of tragedy and a string of mass shootings across the nation.
Another community torn apart, more hearts broken.
Now the debate shifts to college campuses.
The idea that if there are more students walking around this mall with guns will make anyone safer is just nonsense.
And a new state law allowing guns in classrooms.
Some law-abiding CHL licensed carrier will defend themselves against some terrorist, assailant, or mentally disturbed person on one of our college campuses.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of State of Texas In Depth. I'm Josh Hinkle, joining you from the University of Texas at Austin. Some say it will help protect students. Others say it will only create more danger. Regardless, starting August 1st, you will have the right to enter college classrooms in Texas armed. That date also marks the 50-year anniversary of a dark moment here at UT, when a student began firing from up there in the UT Tower, raining bullets and terror onto this campus. Survivors of the massacre testified before state lawmakers who eventually passed the campus carry bill last legislative session. The new law requires public universities to allow licensed concealed handguns on campus. Private universities can opt out of the law, and a handful already have. Public schools have some leeway, though, to carve out gun-free zones.
I think it would just create like a bad atmosphere, like a sense of being unsafe.
I feel that it falls under our constitutional right, and I don't want the Texas government, to strip me of that right.
A day of terror in 1966, unprecedented in Texas and the country. The day Charles Whitman murdered his wife and mother before turning his sights on the University of Texas.
There is a sniper on the university tower firing at will.
With a rifle, a shotgun, and other weapons, he climbed UT's tower and continued to kill. In all, 16 people.
We were walking across and I felt like I stepped on an electrical line because it was such a huge jolt.
UT student Claire James was 8 months pregnant. She and her boyfriend were walking by the UT tower when the rampage began.
I had no idea I was shot or where I was shot. And Tom reached out and said, "Baby, what's wrong?" And then he was shot right away in the neck. He died instantly.
Claire James and other survivors have worked for years to bring a memorial here to the Turtle Pond on the UT campus to remember that day. They will finally dedicate it on August 1st, exactly 50 years since that shooting, and also the day a controversial law takes effect in Texas. James was among many who testified against the campus carry bill in recent legislative sessions. Now it only adds to the debate as mass shootings continue happening across the nation.
You must never, ever give up or give in or give out.
Congress left Washington this month without passing any gun limitations. Even a bill to delay the sale of guns to people on the terrorist no-fly list couldn't get through both chambers. It prompted Democratic lawmakers to make an unexpected move, a sit-in on the House floor.
When this House last convened, a number of us were willing to sit in order to stand up.
Among those who took over the chamber that night was Austin Representative Lloyd Doggett, who was actually a student here at UT during the 1966 shooting.
I lived just a few blocks from campus that this tragedy was underway.
What did you think when you found out the news?
Well, it was shocking. We'd never had anything like that happen before. It was one of those but for the grace of God moments that I guess all of us feel at some point. But if he had been pointing his weapons more in my direction, I could have been one of the victims. And I think that's true of hundreds of other people in the university area.
I know that this changed so much about security and police presence here at UT. You were the student body president the year following that tragedy. How do you think that shaped the direction of the campus?
Well, it did lead to some additional security here because it's apparent that the campus and the Austin Police Department at that point weren't prepared for an incident of this type that had never been envisioned. And so having to borrow weapons from civilians to help do this, so there definitely was an upgrade in security, but nothing like what we have now. Because tragically, these have become incidents where if a week goes by and no one's shot in violence with a gun, that's almost an unusual week. Then it was extraordinarily unusual. I think it was viewed as an aberration of this is one disturbed individual who caused so much pain, but not necessarily any recognition that it might reoccur soon and affect the country the way it does today.
It was hard to ignore what the Democrats did on the House floor in Washington earlier this summer with the sit-in over gun control.
Well, it was an extraordinary tactic. It's certainly something not to use regularly, but that we needed to do something to elevate this issue. The National Rifle Association, the gun lobby, has won the debate for the last several years completely by just getting this issue off the agenda. We're not discussing it, we're not acting on it, and with one act of gun violence after another, with so many people being killed on a daily basis from gun violence, we needed to raise the stakes, and we plan to keep this issue on the agenda until we get action.
The campus carry bill that the Texas legislature passed is about to become law.
Well, I think it's outrageous. We had the chancellor, the president, students through student government, the faculty, all saying don't do this. It won't make it safer. And certainly in a stressful environment that is here on campus, as young people adjust to this, finals, all the pressures of being accepted as a young person, it just creates an environment where more guns means more danger and more risk.
You know, coming up on the tower now, 50 years later.
Well, I remember many good times around this mall, but that day and reflecting back on it, just a horror that while we've got an anniversary, the victims and their families, they don't need an anniversary. They live with this every day. The loss, the pain, the hurt, sometimes the physical injury as a result of this. So we're here to honor them and to remember ourselves. And on an anniversary like this, we ought to be acting so that we won't have others who are affected by the same kind of gun violence.
Our children off to college to bring back a degree in their hands, not to bring them back in a body bag.
For months, high tensions over guns on college campuses.
If you guys do decide to go against this, I will walk until my feet bleed to make sure that you never are an elected official again.
With input on and off campus,
it doesn't pass what I call the common sense of good judgment law.
The 2015 Texas legislature came to a close with the last-minute vote making campus carry the law. The campus carry legislation easily passed through the state Senate, but members of the state House needed more convincing. Representative Alan Fletcher helped shepherd it through the House.
They had come to me as the only retired peace officer in the Texas legislature about carrying a bill for campus carry. Thought about it and evaluated what the circumstances were, did a little research into how many hundreds of thousands of men and women in Texas are CHL licensed carriers. What a small percentage of that actually attend college after they're 21 years old. And you know, it'd be those like myself that went back to graduate school in their 40s. With a campus like UT in Austin with 40 to 50,000 people, there were less than 400 and something in the entire operation that had a CHL period.
The move to allow guns on campus comes as Texas lawmakers also loosen gun restrictions. Around the time they passed campus carry, lawmakers also legalized the open carry of handguns. They eliminated the charges for accidentally bringing a gun to the airport. Another bill made it illegal for city and county governments to ban guns in their buildings, though weapons still aren't allowed in courtrooms. Fall semester 2010, while students at the University of Texas studied for midterms in the library,
We started hearing all this commotion, these screams, these yells.
19-year-old math major Colton Tooley, dressed all in black, came through the doors carrying an assault rifle.
Had a suit on, it looked like, with some kind of headgear, and it was an AK-47.
Dashing through a set of security detectors, he headed to the 6th floor, past dozens of people.
I heard people start screaming, gun, gun, gun.
Tooley never pointed his gun at anyone, and in just a few short minutes, he took his own life. In the 6 years since Colton Tooley walked into this building, UT has worked to better educate its staff and students on the resources for mental health concerns here. In that time, state lawmakers have also worked to pass a law that many people believe will help protect students here on campus. Public universities must now allow guns into college classrooms, though systems can carve out gun-free zones. UT banned guns in dorm rooms, but not common areas. Professors must allow guns in their classrooms, but can ban them from a private office. Generally speaking, people cannot bring guns into any sports venues, some research labs, and medical clinics. With just 3 months left until the presidential election, gun laws are already playing a role. Donald Trump told the National Rifle Association he wanted to get rid of gun-free zones. Hillary Clinton says she'll take on the gun lobby to push against background check loopholes. You can keep up with all of our campaign coverage ahead of the November election right here on KXAN News and KXAN.com. From all of us with KXAN's political team, thank you for joining us for this special edition of State of Texas In Depth. Have a great day.